we have another Meet the Team here, and we got a great one today. They all have been great.
Hell yeah.
We're starting to kind of get down to, we've covered a lot. And right now, we've got iKaanic up here on Flow State episode 39.
Let's go.
Sent in a video, and check it out.
Hell yeah. Shout out to my boy iKaanic. Most of you already know what's up. He's an artist in his own right. Mm-hmm. And the first employee that we hired.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was just me and my now wife for the first chapter of this thing. And iKaanic is the first person, outside person that we brought in. And he's just been killing it and taking things to the highest possible level for years now. And he's an amazing person, somebody who I'm very grateful to know. And I'm very excited to hear what he has to ask here. And it's funny, too, before I press play, how you were like, yeah, we've gone through quite a few people. I'm like, are people at home like, how big is this team?
Yeah.
Like, how long can they keep this up?
It's kind of a vague way to lay it out, to be honest.
But we are getting down to it. So it's only right. We got iKaanic here. Let's hear from our boy.
Yo, what's good, Flow State fam? It's your boy iKaanic. Y'all might have seen me as the chauffeur on car bars. Co-hosts of Happy Hour back in the day, Twitch, YouTube, now Patreon. Also, was the first person on Team Harry Mack back in 2020, and now we got a whole squad that y'all have been meeting. And my hands are in a lot of the operations for Team Harry Mack, and it's been honestly the best time of my life. So here's my question to Harry. One thing y'all might not know is how obsessed Harry is with practicing, and he's talked about it, and we all know he loves practicing, but it's really on a different level. Like, y'all might think he practices to be better at the performance or the videos or anything. It really is like he would lock himself in a studio for like 3 years and just practice with like no food or water if like that was possible. That's what it feels like sometimes. I'm exaggerating. But anyway, my question is, Harry, why? What makes practicing so appealing to you? What brings you into that moment every single time and just makes you obsessed with practicing itself? Yeah, that's the question.
Peace.
Hey, hold up. Yo.
Hold up.
Oh, we're ready to stream that in peace by your boy iKaanic, y'all. Come on, iKaanic.
Sam Fish, fun fact.
Come on now.
We have the same birthday, this man and I. All right, so it was meant to be.
Back.
Damn.
iKaanic.
Replace mine with the...
Nailed it.
That's epic, dude. Also hilarious that Sam is making like an Inception like double appearance like in the episode from a different time. This is crazy. The Europe shows have already happened. My mind is blown.
Yeah, this was definitely shot during rehearsals, so
Yeah.
we were in the same crib there for a bit.
Nice. That's awesome. And yeah, go stream In Peace. iKaanic's album. Go check it out.
For real.
Dope project. And just go support this guy in everything that he's doing. And also just know that everything of mine that you see like coming out into the world in video form, like this guy is like the mastermind. He's like scheduling everything out, picking moments, putting things in a certain order. Like, let's do this on this day because that'll lead well into the. I mean, it's just amazing actually what this cat can do and the way that his mind works. It's fucking inspiring. Shout out to iKaanic. And great question. Why do I love practicing? Man, let me think on that because I don't necessarily know exactly why I love practicing because I don't necessarily know exactly why I love music. It's kind of like we can trace like evolution back to like know that we like kind of started as like single-celled organisms and then like over millions of years like now we have humans and all this biodiversity. But like to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm speaking out of my field here, but we don't know exactly why the first single-celled organisms emerged. Like we don't know exactly how that I guess we definitely don't know why, but we don't, I'd think, even exactly know how. Like there are some theories maybe that it was like electricity or like lightning hit the water, like some shit happened. But anyway, whether or not that's true, it relates to how I feel about my connection to music. Like I know that I was moved by music essentially from the very beginning. And I know this because like I'm told that I reacted to music in certain ways when I was a baby. What's really special is that my daughter also reacts to music in this really special way. And it's just amazing to see. Side note, she dances and she knows when it's music and she knows when it's time to dance, which that alone blows my mind because she's not even a year old yet. And it's like, she can't talk, but she knows what music is. And she knows that when you hear music, you can move your body in a certain way that is musical and expressive. And I used to do my version of that when I was a baby. And it's like, as soon as the memories start forming, there's this like feeling that music is just the dopest shit ever. Like that was just always there. So I have to assume it was there before I started forming memories, not just because of these stories of me moving my body and dancing. Maybe most babies do that. You know, it's possible. But like that might be really common. Comment below if you also dance to the music from a young age before making memories. But in addition to that, it's just like as soon as the memories started, I was like, yes, music is everything. This is so fire. This is what I'm into. And I don't know why. You know, there must be something about me, about the way that I'm wired and the way that I'm set up. I have to assume that makes it just extra appealing to me. Most people enjoy music, some form of music, and there's a lot of people out there who really love music. And I'm one of those people, you know, and I always have been. And so I think I always kind of knew somehow that I was going to get myself into a position where I could play music. And then luckily I had really supportive parents who got me into that position. And then I started learning about what it means to practice. Probably like when I started playing the violin, you know, when I was 7. I started when I was 7. And that was the first time, I guess, where my teacher was like, hey, here's what we're working on, and you need to practice it. And I didn't love practicing at that point, but I knew that I had to do it, I guess, and my dad kind of forced me to do it. And sometimes I would throw tantrums and be like, I don't want to practice. He'd be like, you have to practice. We're paying for these violin lessons and blah, blah, blah. But shout out to my dad, though, because even though we would sometimes clash over the need to practice, he was there by my side for the whole like beginnings of me learning what it means to be a musician. And he had this little notebook where he would take notes, detailed notes in every violin lesson. And then he would put the date and the notes from our practice sessions every night.
Wow.
And I had that notebook, and I'm just realizing that notebook is gone from the fire. I actually had not thought about that.
It's incredible.
That's crazy. I just realized that. Wow, it's in the ether. But it's forever in my memories. And he gave it to me at one point after I graduated from college, and it was like the coolest thing to receive because it was just so meaningful, you know, to like, so I really learned how to practice, you know, with my dad basically. And he's not even a musician, but he was just such a dedicated father that that he did that. We did that for 30 minutes a night, you know, most nights. So that, I guess, is when I started. But like I said, I didn't really like it. But then it got to a point, though, where I started to get kind of like okay at the violin, you know? And violin's a crazy instrument because for the first like year, it sounds horrible, except unless you're like a rare prodigy or something and it just comes to you naturally. But usually it like takes a long time. I might be exaggerating, but it takes a long time to get a nice tone. Whereas like a piano, you can walk up and press a key and there's levels to it, but you'll more or less get the tone of a piano. You're not going to like press it and get like a horrible cat strangle sound, but with the violin, you do. And so it took a long time. And then eventually I got kind of okay at it. And at some point, you know, I did a recital, and rather than cry through the whole recital or just go up and do a bow, that was a funny thing too. Like one of the early things you could do at a recital before you could play was you would just go up with your violin in rest position. You would put it in play position. You would put it back in rest position and you would bow. But eventually I got to a place where I could play the piece, you know, whatever the piece was, and it went kind of well. And I think that was a big piece of it was I realized in that moment that like, oh, wow, this is why we're doing the practice. And it's so obvious, but as a kid, you know, it's just kind of like, why do I have to do this practice? And then eventually there was the payoff of having like a decent performance where it was like, oh shit, this is why we did all of that. You know, because it felt really amazing to go up there on that stage and do a good job. It felt amazing, And so it's like, that was like this eye-opening moment of like, oh, this is how it works. This is how music works. And I love music. And I don't know if I had I don't think that I had like an intrinsic like connection to the violin. Like I didn't have like a natural pull to the violin. It was more like I have this undeniable pull to music and it's obvious. And then my parents are like, let's get you started on an instrument. Which one do you want? And I was kind of like, I don't know, shy. And then they're like, what about the violin? And I was like, okay, sure. So it was that kind of thing. It was a great first instrument for me, but it wasn't like calling to my heart and pulling me in. But still, I was able to see through the violin for the first time, like this is how you get good at music. Like this is how you can become a musician. It's through this practice thing. And like maybe I should be a little bit more open to it. And then it was like I want to play the drums. That came from me, and that was when I was 10. And I was like I want to play the drums, and then I get my drums, and it's like I didn't have to be told to practice. Like my parents were amazed. They're like, he just goes down there and practices. Like we have to tell him to stop practicing.
How old were you?
Now you got to eat dinner. 10.
10? When you switched to the drums?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, so that was the next level of me being like, that's the instrument that I want to play. And so then it's like, we get that instrument, but it's pulled into it's the private teacher lesson once a week. Here's the thing to work on. Shout out to my first drum teacher, Israel Ano from Ghana, now based in Portland, Oregon. Amazing musician, amazing teacher. Won the lottery with my first drum teacher. Just incredible mentor to me and taught me so much. But it was that sort of traditional way of learning an instrument in a sense. He would come to my house and the lessons were in the basement and stuff like that. But it still worked that way. And then right around the same time, it was like hip hop. I'm like, I want that. I want that thing. Like, that's amazing. How do we do that? And that was not even brought into like a traditional way of learning an instrument because that didn't and doesn't still really exist. So it was like, oh, I'm just going to start rapping and writing rhymes. And then eventually, like soon after, 6th grade or something, it was like, oh, there's this program called Fruity Loops and you can like make beats in there. And so then it's just like, holy shit. It's like, I'm taking this thing that I learned as a little kid from the violin of like, if you do the thing consistently, you'll get better at it. And it's so simple, but it's like, it's so true. And it's true in everything. And, but I was like, now I can apply it to the things that I'm genuinely so curious about within this thing called music. And I can take inspiration from like the music that's already like speaking to my soul and figure out how to like get closer to it myself through practice. So it became very motivating. And I guess it's similar to like when people are trying to like lose weight or like, change their body composition or something like that. And it's hard to get motivated in the beginning because it takes a really long time before you see a result. And I think this was kind of similar. It was like, luckily my dad like was making me do it when I couldn't see a result. And then as soon as I saw the result, I was like, that's cool. And then I started seeing more results and I was like, this is sick. And then eventually it was like, oh, okay, tight. I can, and it wasn't so consciously like I was thinking about it like this, but I think in the back of my mind, and in my soul somewhere and in my heart, that's like really what was happening was I was like starting to realize how it all works. And now I will say that practice for me has become, somewhere along the way, it became like this almost necessary practice for me. There's that word practice. That's kind of funny. But I mean like the same way that like meditation is a necessary practice for some people or like waking up people like to wake up at a certain time. They feel better when they wake up early or they feel better when they stay up late. People feel better when they eat certain kinds of foods. People have to see their best friend at least once every couple of weeks or they start to feel like they're not grounded anymore. And so music practice became that to me. And I didn't even realize that, but it was just like when you have this thing that's in your life every day for like your whole childhood, like all the way through high school. And then I went to music school. So then all through college, I'm practicing. And then like you get out of college and like, you're trying to practice, but you're in apartments and you can't always play drums and stuff. And you're trying to figure it out. You're just like desperately scratching to find a practice space as a drummer, because it's like, I need to do this. And it's no longer even about like, I need to get better. It's what it is, bro? Rick Rubin. It's not even about the result. It's just not even about the result anymore. And that's why Khan's saying, he's joking in here, I would just lock myself away for 3 years. Before he said no food or water, I was like, yeah, I actually want to do that. You know, Sonny Rollins did that. Rest in peace to the great tenor saxophonist Sonny Rollins from the jazz world, who passed away not long ago and was and is one of my favorites. And he did that. You know, he removed himself from the professional scene just so he could practice for years on a bridge in his neighborhood, and then came back like at a whole nother level. He was already amazing, and he was already on the scene. But he was like, yeah, fuck this. I'm playing too many gigs. I'm playing too many gigs. I don't have enough time to practice. And I felt like that sometimes. Like, man, we're filming too many videos that I need to practice. So it's beautiful, man. I'm so grateful to have that thing in my life, you know, because it helps me feel grounded, and it helps me I just got to practice today, funny enough. We had the rehearsal space booked for today. It's a Friday. We did Monday through Friday, 2 weeks in a row. But we were so tight on the set. We had run it so many times that we all kind of were like, hey, I think we could take Friday off, you know, give people some time to like run some errands and get ready for tour. Because there's a lot of things there's a lot of little loose ends you got to tie up before you go away for a month, right? Mm-hmm. And I was going to cancel the rehearsal space. And then I was like, wait, 4 hours of room and there's a drum set in there? It's like, oh, never mind, I'm keeping it. And so I went there and I practiced, and I hadn't like practiced the whole time because we've been rehearsing so much. It's so funny. Everyone's like, isn't that what practice is? It's like, no, you don't understand, because to me, practice is a solo thing. You know, it's this thing I do. And I think that's one of the other things that I love about it. Just realize that is, you know, despite what I do for a living, I'm actually very introverted, and I recharge, you know, through alone time. And so to me, practice is this like beautiful form of alone time where it's just me and the instrument. That's it. You know, it's just me and the instrument. And I'm not trying to impress anybody. You know, I just know what I'm working on, and I know how to measure whether it's working or not. And I know that if it's not working, I can slow it down, and I can slow it down infinitely. And eventually I can slow it down to a place where I can do it. And then I can build it back up gradually, you know, and I can build this cathedral, you know, like one tiny brick at a time. I can just build this cathedral. And it's just so like, it just makes me feel warm even talking about it. I love to practice.